Hello. Thank you. Right, welcome everybody to the reconvening of the hearing for the proposed Southland Flood Control and Rain Management Bylaw 2026. Just a couple of things from me before we carry on. Firstly, just wanted to acknowledge that to the submitters who didn't speak to these submissions, that their submissions were equally considered. Just because they didn't attend the hearing last time doesn't mean that we didn't give them the same consideration. And I failed to mention that last time, so my apologies for that. And also to explain for those people who are watching online last time that the voices that you heard from beyond were staff that were in the room, and I permitted them to contribute their thoughts. But this time round, if there's to be any staff contributions, please make sure that you do ask my permission, and that if you are going to speak, you come to the table so that everybody can see you. With that, a brief whakatauki, I orea te tuatara ka patu ki waho, which is a problem that is solved by continuing to find solutions. And with that, I will hand it over to Vicky, who's, no, Lauren actually, who's going to do some administrative things for us first. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm just sharing on the screen up there. So following on from the hearing adjournment on the 26th of March, the regional planning team cross-checked the tables recording the recommendations of the panel with the document showing the recommended amendments to the bylaw. There are 3 administrative changes that have been tracked into the bylaw document as a result, in a different colour, and all on page 2. Just coming up on the screen. So showing in red at the moment is the first one. This was from the Director General of Conservation submission, submission number 13011.1. Panel recommendation was to accept the requested amendment for the reasons in the staff recommendation. The staff recommendation was to amend the bylaw summary section to include reference to the code of practice for river works. However, wording to reflect this had not been included in the recommended amendments. Wording has been provided by the reporting officer and drafted into the explanatory note here on page 2 for the panel to consider and confirm or adjust. The other 2 changes are the insertion of Invercargill City Council and Whakamana Te Waituna into a footnote on page 2 to show that the changes in the final paragraph on the page are informed by these submissions. These were submission numbers 1016.2 and 4013 respectively. Terminology was also checked for consistency, and it was found that the term stop bank in the definition of flood control works should be amended to flood bank for consistency. The reporting officer can also talk to this recommended change in more detail. Currently, the maps in Appendix A also use the term stop bank in the legend, but these can also be updated to read flood bank. All of the other changes in the document since the 26th of March are limited to the inclusion and track changes of the definitions that have been recommended by the reporting officer, and these have been flagged with comments to assist with the panel's deliberations today, and the reporting officer can talk to these in more detail.
Any questions, you?
No. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Fine. Thanks. Reporting officer, please take it away.
Kia ora koutou. I'm going to start by taking you through the definitions that were discussed at the hearing on the 26th of March. These include new definitions for landward and riverside, and maintenance and renewal, and amendments to the existing definitions of owner and occupier. I'll take you through my recommendations on each of these definitions, starting with landward. Some submitters were seeking clarification on what it is meant by the landward side of a flood control works. I've proposed a definition of landward that is the side of the flood control work that faces away from a water body. It was also suggested that as landward was being defined, then it would be useful to also define riverside. Riverside is not a term that's used in the bylaw, so it's not recommended that it be included as a definition. And there was also a suggestion of a diagram to support the understanding of landward and riverside in relation to flood control works. There's a diagram that you can see on the screen there. My recommendation is that the diagram be used in supporting documents rather than actually within the bylaw itself, as the diagram, it was difficult to design the diagram in a way that captures all of the varying types of flood control works. You can see on what's on the screen, people would look at that and think, well, that's just a flood bank, whereas flood control works are much more than just flood banks. My recommendation is that we leave the landward definition as it is without the supporting diagram, but the diagram could definitely be used in the good management practice guidance documents that we have for a range of different things that council do, and we could easily provide something along those lines in that supporting document rather than actually within the bylaw itself. Just to avoid the confusion of, we don't want people to think that a flood bank is the only type of flood control works that the bylaw is applied to. So if we move through to the definitions for owner and occupier, the definition for owner is in the RMA, and so my recommendation is that we maintain that definition as it is, so we're not creating inconsistencies between planning documents. The RMA definition is more fulsome than what we actually have drafted into the bylaw at the moment. So we could add further parts from the RMA as an option. That actually I'm not on what you see on the screen, but are in my the supplementary hearing report as the potentials to amend the definition for owner. Whether you consider that would add more clarity to understanding or whether the definition for owner, we just maintain it as it is. What we have is a shortened version of what's in the RMA rather than the full version of what's in the RMA. There is, so I'd like to correct my report. Occupier is defined in the RMA as the inhabitant occupier of any property. I'm not recommending any further amendments to that definition of occupier because it aligns with the RMA. But I have provided an alternative, which again is in the supplementary hearing report on definitions, which the alternative that I've put forward is that an occupier is a person who holds possession or control of property. So that is a potential alternative to what is in the bylaw currently. There was some discussion around the term and definition of maintenance and the addition of renewal activities, specifically in relation to clause 4.1 of the bylaw. One suggestion was to include the Southland Water and Land Plan definition of maintenance to ensure consistency between documents. What I've proposed is to use the definition from the National Policy Statement that specifically covers infrastructure and infrastructure works. this is on the screen, and you'll see that it applies to work necessary to continue to deliver the same level of service. In relation to the definition for renewal, that was proposed for clause 4.1. The intent behind the renewal activities was to be able to capture work that may require flood control works to be replaced, but allows for design improvements while not increasing design capacity or the level of service that flood control work provides. I believe that the definition proposed for maintenance that is in the MPS line, can we just bring them maintenance? Thank you. That it captures works that the renewal activities were intended to cover. Well, the key part of that definition is where it says that it provides for work that is necessary to continue to deliver the same level of service. So my recommendation based on that maintenance definition that from the National Policy Statement for Infrastructure is that the term renewal doesn't need to be defined, and if it doesn't need to be defined, then it also doesn't need to be included in clause 4.1. As that definition for maintenance addresses those design improvements that can be made to the flood control works, provided those works are within the existing level of service. And we also have the Appendix A map to the bylaw available, hard copies of a hard copy of that, and those maps are available online on South Maps as well. And as Lauren has noted, that there may be, we may need to do a consistency check on that, a couple of those terms as administrative changes, for particularly around where we have used stop bank or flood bank interchangeably. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, thanks, Vicky. I think what we might do is a step through and cover those off as we go, because mostly they're independent of each other. So if we make one decision here, it's not going to unduly influence something that we decide later on. So if everybody's happy with that, start at the beginning and work our way through. Otherwise, I will get confused. Right, so just making sure that we are all looking at the same documents. So we're looking at the updated, circulated version of the draft bylaw on one hand and the staff recommendations on the other. Right. That first page, which is page 3 of our document, that's the front page of the draft bylaw, I suppose. Nothing new in there, folks. Are you happy with that? Great. Click that over. And that brings us to one of the definitions that one of the administrative issues actually was just the replacement of stop bank with flood bank. As part of that consistency, so that's all good.
Yep. Support that.
And that brings us down to the explanatory note, which is as we requested. Team.
Yep, that was fine.
Now, Vicky, just talk us through, because you've in the draft you've got the diagram in there. Yep. Tell us again where that will go if it doesn't go in the bylaw itself. Yeah. Understand your reasons for wanting to do that.
Yeah, so as part of the suite of guidance documents that we have available online. Land Sustainability team have one specifically called A Guide to Farming on Flood-Prone Land. In it, its purpose is around giving people the information that they need to make sure that they're making the best decisions if they happen to have stop banks or flood control works on their property. And one of the things that they actually currently have is a diagram that sets out the extent of the floodway. So it shows the river, and then it will show flood banks, and then the 7.5 metres on either side. So it could be used in one of those types of guidance documents.
It's a supportive document.
Yes, it is a supporting document.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when the bylaw is adopted, there'll be a suite of comms pieces that will go with it, and that can certainly be something. And at least if we can put it into one of these good management documents, then we can specifically identify the flood banks, as opposed to having to associating it with a definition. Then we need to be a little bit more careful in how it's applied, so we're not excluding some things that we actually want to include.
Personally, I don't see it as much of a problem, and it's just a supportive document that describes it and shows it clearly or clarifies it for whoever that is looking at it, and I think it's a great thing.
The trick is that to make sure that people know that those supporting documents exist. Of course.
Yes.
I'm comfortable with that. If my colleagues are comfortable with the word definition, that will stay in the bylaw, which would be refers to the side of the flood control work that faces away from the water body. So if you're happy with that being the definition,
Landward is fine.
then we can we accept that recommendation from Vicky. Thank you. So that would put it into the guidance documents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice. Over the page, the definitions of maintenance. We have the choice, I suppose, Vicky, between the Southland Water and Land Plan definition and the National Policy Statement definition. Thoughts, colleagues?
I would support the one from the National Policy Statement. Noting that also means there's no need for a definition for renewal. Would be covered or captured within that maintenance one. That would be my preference or thoughts.
Not sure what your preference would be, but that would be mine as well
Absolutely
too.
mine.
Deliver to the same level.
Yeah.
We know about historical.
So properly aligned, because we don't want any little funky hooks in there or holes. Thank you, Vicky. That's that recommendation then. The National Policy Statement. And then the occupier and owner recommendations. Okay, a little bit. Remind us all what your recommendation is for that. So the owner one, we have the choice of the more fulsome RMA definition of owner, or the one that currently exists in the bylaw, which is briefer but has the same intent, correct?
Yes. Yes. And given that the reason for having this discussion about the definition of owner was because there was some concern that it was overly complicated, I would suggest that going for the more fulsome version in the RMA will mean that it's still overly complicated. And which is why I recommend we leave it as it is.
If I might, the mention of rack rent was part of the
That was
confusion.
the only thing that was
Wasn't
a confusing issue, and my
Yep.
thoughts are that it's not confusing at all. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the title of occupier, title of owner is pretty simplistic and not confusing, and the description that's given is pretty close to what exactly what I would think, and to use a more long-winded one, I think would confuse it. And I think the only issue I think that a submitter mentioned was the terminology rack rent, and I think that was because it was new. That term was new to me, but it doesn't mean that we know what an owner is and we know what an occupier is.
I think you can deduce what rack rent would mean
Yes.
by the very word that you're looking at the definition of,
Yes.
I would suggest.
Well, you can Google.
Yeah, well, you can
That
Google.
is, I've just done.
And what did Google tell you, Councillor?
A rent that represents the full open market annual value of a holding, or
Yeah.
often simply called the market rent.
So that would mean that we are comfortable with the draft bylaw definition of owner and subsequently occupier.
I'm fine with that.
Yes. And can I just be clear that, go back a step, because we've accepted the landward definition, there will be no need to include river site as a definition. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Maintenance we've done. Slightly different universe. That then takes us to the maps. Vicky, does it? Or is there something else? You know, turn the page.
Renewal.
Oh, renewal, yeah. Do we need to say any more than the fact that that's covered by the definition of maintenance?
Yes, I think that's fine with regards to work necessary to continue to deliver the same level of service.
That requires a change to 4.1 though, correct?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So as it stands, the draft bylaw says nothing in this bylaw applies to the council or any officer or persons authorised by the council undertaking maintenance or emergency works on any flood controls for the council.
Perfect.
But Vicky's recommendation is, correct me if I'm wrong, nothing in this bylaw applies to the council undertake maintenance or emergency works on any control works for the council. Correct. Right. I think we're comfortable with that. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I think they're both the same. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Thank you. And the maps is the other thing I've got on my list. Oh, there's one other thing apart from the maps. Just the administrative change for that. And Lauren, perhaps it might be helpful if you explain that might not be ready immediately, but making those changes and cross checks to that.
For the maps. Yes, so that's something that we can, given that the correction has been made to the term, changing the term stop bank to flood bank in the bylaw itself, we can update the maps to match and make sure that that's ready by the time it goes to council on the 29th of April.
Perfect. So going back through page by page, because we've said we would do that. 4.1 is sorted. 4.2, there's no other changes apart from administrative things. The other changes that we requested are there, page item 5. Applying for an authority. Can I just ask for perhaps a repeat or a clarification that there's not necessarily a fee automatically applied to an application for an authority? That's correct, is it?
Yeah, no fee for an application.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that out loud because somebody strangely asked me that recently. I want to make sure that that's clear. Moving through then, 5.1B, there's a change there, and sorry,
So that's carried to the next.
yeah, so 5.1, that cropped out becomes 5.1G. Noting the public facing and an overview report your own council committee, which was our request. Yep. Moving on to page 9. The addition of the word even.
It was me, sorry.
I can understand though. All right with that?
Yes.
Right, nothing else on that page. Compliance and enforcement. What's favourite? Bring up there. And this is to remedy. Nothing in those 8.4 to 8.6 for anybody.
No.
And final page, which is the revocation and savings predominantly. And the change to within 20 working days prior to that.
Yeah, because it relates back to 8.6A.
Yep.
Then we come to C.
Yep.
You know, to be uniform.
Okay. I think that means that we can move on to the recommendation that we didn't pass last time. And it now reads, recommend to council that the proposed Southland flood control and drainage management bylaw be adopted with the amendments made following the hearing held on the 26th of March 2026. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, councillor.
Mm-hmm.
Move second or just carry?
That's everyone's medicine.
Yeah. And the inclusion of the maps shown in Appendix A. Yeah.
Subject to formatting.
Yes. Yeah. All those. I'll move it. Paul,
I'll second that.
second it, and we're all saying aye.
Carry.
Okay.
Aye.
That brings the formal part of the proceedings to a close. But first, I would very much like to thank staff for their patience and hard work on this. I know it's been a thing. And I know it's not over yet, so keep fighting a good fight. Really appreciate that.
Worth checking out staff.
Yes. Yes, it is worth checking. You have everything that you need from us. And thanks again to the many submitters who took the time and energy to share their views with us. I'm sorry that some of your concerns sit outside the bylaw requirements that we have, but your concerns have not gone unheard, and I'm sure they'll pop up with us again some of the time. So thanks to the submitters for their time, and I hope that we have created a bylaw that is usable and workable and sensible. With that, I will close the hearing and again say thank you to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Leave that being on.